Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Linda J. Hansen, your host of the Prosperity 101 podcast, where we seek to unleash the power of employers to reclaim and preserve America by connecting boardroom to breakroom and policy to paycheck. Employers educating employees about public policy issues that affect their jobs can lead to greater employee loyalty, engagement, and retention, and to an increased awareness of the blessings and responsibilities of living in a free society. We help people understand the foundations of true prosperity, the policies of prosperity, and how to protect prosperity by becoming informed, involved, and impactful. To access our podcast library and resources, or to sign our Employers Unleashed pledge, visit prosperity101.com. Thank you so much for joining with me today. It is always just a joy to have you in the audience, and I'm so glad that you could take time. We appreciate the fact that you are choosing to watch or listen to this broadcast. There's so many choices out there. Thank you for choosing to spend time with us today. Before we begin the episode, I do want to say a special thank you to our prosperity partners, those who help us keep the podcast on the air by sharing financially. And if you'd like to be a prosperity partner, please go to the prosperity partner link on our website, prosperity101.com, and hit that prosperity partner link and just share whatever you can afford. Some people give monthly, some people give from time to time, but whatever you can afford to show support for this podcast, we appreciate every bit of it. Also like to invite you to join our Employers Unleashed community, a community of other like-minded individuals who want to impact our 7 mountains of culture positively by doing so in the workplace. So with all of that being said, now I will introduce our guests. And for the sake of time, because there's 2 of them, I'm going to let them do their brief introductions. But Tony and Nicole Davis are with me. And I have not known them long, but I'm so intrigued by their story. And I've gotten to know them a little bit through our membership in the U.S. Christian Chamber of Commerce, of which we're both just so proud to be a part. And Tony and Nicole, they have started the Maryland Christian Chamber of Commerce. And I'm just so thankful for what they're doing. They're leading, and they had a launch in March of this new chamber. And it's just exciting what's happening there and the potential for what can happen in the marketplace there with Christian business leaders and those who are really trying to make a difference nationally and in their state and region. So Nicole and Tony, thank you so much for making time for this interview.
Our pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. We are so appreciative of you inviting us on your show.
Well, it's, I think the audience will be really glad to get to know you and to just discover some of the things that you do and that you have been doing. Your history is pretty interesting. Nicole, I'm going to start with you. Can you start a little bit about what you've done in your career? I know it is extensive and you are so accomplished, and your schooling, your work experiences, both in the military, government, and business. And it's just exciting to see. And then we'll move on to Tony.
Thank you.
She said brief.
And
I said brief.
I'll be very brief. I am in Maryland by way of Ohio. That's where I was born and raised. And Tony and I met in the military. We're both Navy veterans. And we met in Keflavik, Iceland. And that was back in 1991. So we've been married over 34 years and chose to settle here in Maryland. We have 2 adult sons. But you're right. My career started in social work. That's what my undergrad is in. I spent a stint of time in the federal government. My doctorate is in conflict analysis and resolution. So I've worked with executives and leaders, families, churches, communities, all around alternative dispute resolution and how to work better together. The relational dynamics in all of those spheres is what I focus on, the communication piece and how people work together. So I've done that for over 20 years. And just here recently started the Maryland Christian Chamber of Commerce, which is something that was not on my radar, but the Lord We all want to be subject to the Lord's leading, and that has opened up this whole other world to us because we're both authors. We've co-written a number of books, and I've also written books with other organizations. To mention the U.S. Christian Chamber, the Kingdom Commerce book, I am one of the contributing authors there, and then some other books, and my own book as well. But that's just a little bit. I think some more will come out as we start talking.
Well,
Okay.
I think so because there is
Okay. And now we have
because
30 seconds left in this.
yes, yes. And I think so because there is so much more. And boy, when you talk about conflict analysis and working in government, I kind of wish you were back in government working on conflict analysis,
Yeah.
helping to resolve conflict in the government. So that would be great. But Tony, a little bit about you too. And it's great you met it together in Iceland. That's a story in itself.
Oh, that's a 45-minute podcast within itself.
Hmm.
But and also Nicole was still resolving conflict through her company Empower to Engage as well. So it's not that uh, people are now just left with no one to help them resolve their issues. But in my case, I'm glad Nicole covered some of the things that we've done jointly. I have a lot of experience in the corporate world working in employment and also contracts management, but now I'm an attorney. I have my own family law practice, Davis Family Legal Group, specializing in estate planning. And with the Maryland Christian Chamber of Commerce, I am the legal and legislative chair.
And that's wonderful. It's encouraging to see how both of you have your gifts and your backgrounds, and you're using them in such unique ways to make a difference in the business world, in the marketplace, and for the Lord in terms of your ministry with the Christian Chamber. You have these other businesses, and yet you bring together and you're taking time to start this chamber, which is exciting. And I'm confident that it is going to have a huge impact in your region. Tony, I know that you have recently made quite a difference, and you've been in the news a bit because you have been helping to bring light to discrimination against those who choose private schooling, like private religious schooling and things. And there's been some legislation in your state. Would you like to bring a little bit of update on that for the audience? Because I'm sure everybody is facing similar issues and they'd love to know what's working for you.
Sure, what to answer your question. What I like to, I guess I would like to, since you asked me about it. But in this particular case, I think we need to go back a little bit. We talked in this particular piece of legislation is about things that could impact Christian schools. But I think regardless of where you are, whether you're in Maryland or if you're in Wisconsin, blue state, purple state, red state, I think one of the challenges that we have here is that here, meaning Maryland, we are definitely a deep blue state, right? But what happens is with legislation, you'll get these titles of bills that seem so innocent and so good on its face, right? But when you look at the language in the bill, the impact will be the complete opposite of what that legislation is supposed to do. And I think that's a huge problem. And then so here in our General Assembly convenes for 90 days each year. As a matter of fact, we just finished this past Monday, on April 13th. So for 90 days, we hammer it out. And you have thousands of bills going through the legislature, and you have all these titles, and they'll sound really good, like anti-discrimination against this, or making sure that so-and-so has this great opportunity here. So, but we had an anti-discrimination bill when it came to education. And when you read it, you say, "Oh, of course, we don't want anyone to be discriminated against it in the public schools or even the private schools." But the reality, Linda, that bill, just for the sake of keeping this short, so I'm going to go 30,000 feet, so I may miss some things, but if it's anything important, you can fill it in, or maybe Nicole can fill it in. But for this particular bill, what it really boiled down to is because we are a deep blue state, we looked at what's happening in the federal government with the Department of Education. They look at the cuts and they say, oh, we need to respond to that. And it had nothing to do with any alleged discrimination here. So we had people who said that, well, we need to make sure that we can sue private schools if there's any potential discrimination. In 2022, we went through this process, and we have measures in place where these things can get mediated through some local government agencies. And it's been the case for years. As a matter of fact, we know in most education allegations of discrimination, they're usually done via the administrative process and not in the courts. But in this particular case, we said, hey, Department of OCR is being cut through the Department of Education. We don't like it, so now we need to put this legislation in place where any potential allegation of discrimination could be alleged against a private school, and the punitive damages would be uncapped. Uncapped. So, for instance, and you know as well as I do, we have our religious tenets, and one of the hot ones now is males, females, bathrooms, things of that nature. Well, under this particular piece of legislation that was introduced here, someone can say, hey, I'm a male and I want to go into the bathroom with Linda. And when you tell me that, no, you're going to go to the bathroom of your biological sex, I can say, hey, discrimination, and then floodgates open, here we go. Private schools will be caught up in litigation. And you know as well as I do, sometimes we look at these private schools and we think they're big fancy because, you know, the she schools. But the reality is a lot of these schools operate with really thin margins.
Right.
And if you spend your time in the courtroom fighting some alleged discrimination, and the list is long, whether it's sex, race, whatever the case, I mean, the list is long. You throw the kitchen sink in there, you're going to shut these schools down. You're going to shut these schools down. And the real problem is when it comes to things like race and sex, the lens at which we view these things are so subjective these days that it can be really problematic for private institutions.
It's I loved what you said about how the title of the bill will often be the exact opposite of what's actually inside the bill, and that is so common in politics. And so, to every listener or anyone viewing this, you know, please pay attention. Don't always look at just the title. That's the same for news headlines. It's the same for titles of legislation. The devil is in the details, right? And we just have to pay attention to the details and look to see who the sponsors are a lot with legislation and what their worldview is, what they've been trying to accomplish in the past with other legislation. And, you know, I know that you are so active there, and that's so important. And it's helping to wake up the business community to the need to be involved and engaged in government, in policy proposals. And some people listening might be thinking, well, that's for a school. You know, that's for school. That's not for my business. But actually, everything that happens in schools affects your business. So everything that happens in schools affects your business. It affects your future workforce. It affects your tax base. It affects your community. It affects everything. And so I appreciate so much that this is a combination of your efforts in terms of your faith, but also legislatively making a difference. Now, I also want to say, too, a lot of private schools are a business.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Business. Yeah,
Private schools are businesses.
they are a business. Some of them are nonprofit ministries, but a successful ministry really has to be run like a business in order to stay in ministry. So this is just so critically important, and I appreciate your work so much. So yeah, and so Nicole, you work alongside and separately together for all the different things you do, and I'm confident that you've been able to really help educate people within the Maryland Christian Chamber, but also just really helping to be a voice for this overall, not just this piece of legislation, but the importance for business leaders to impact culture positively. We are really in a critical time in our nation. And you know that I believe that business leaders, especially Christian business leaders, really need to step up and be bold in the marketplace and in their workplaces. And so, tell me a little bit more about what you're doing now to complement this, and then also any other initiatives that you've been really pushing, other than absolutely launching this wonderful Maryland Christian Chamber of Commerce and getting that going.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. The ministry and business go hand in hand, and I think a lot of times as business owners, we don't understand how God wants to use our business as ministry, and then the need when you have a ministry to steward it with excellence and consider all the things that make a business run well is what we want to really educate business owners on.
Mhm.
So the legal and legislative arm is just one. We're doing economic development. We're working with families. We're working with young leaders, government aspects. We have 7 focus areas where we want to educate people or business owners in how you can really represent Christ in the best way. Even conflict analysis or conflict resolution and management is also a component. Like, how do you relate to your people? So, the education piece is allowing us to bring this information to business owners, whether it's personal, spiritual, or in the natural, even health. We're looking at health as well because we as a total person need to be better armed and better aware of all of the tools that we have at our disposal. So the legal piece, Tony's also going to be doing legal and legislative lunch and learns so
Good.
that he can educate people on who are your representatives and what are issues that are important to you in the work that you do, and become advocates. So we don't just want to rehearse the problems. We're really good at that, but becoming advocates and getting out there and being on the front line and being relevant in our communities as voices that can make a difference. And we have this influence with our business because those are dollars. And when we bring all that together and show a combined effort in our numbers, then people will start listening to what we have to say.
Oh, it's so true. And, you mentioned dollars. And one thing I thought about in terms of, businesses, ministry, or even ministries, for business leaders, they might not think of, what you're doing, but they may be supporting another ministry. They might be supporting an orphanage. They might be supporting a youth program, something.
Mhm.
So this type of legislation, really has ripple effects, and your impact having these lunch and learns about policy, everything has impact. So even like a business leader who doesn't think so much about like, oh, what's going on with that school or
Mhm.
something, they often have a philanthropic side to them. They're donating to some nonprofit somewhere. So
Mhm.
are they donating to something that aligns with their values? And how do they know? And that becomes, an educational opportunity for those of us in the marketplace that can help people look, beyond the headlines, beyond the top line title, and be able to
Mhm.
look beyond, just like the legislation, we can look beyond the name of an organization as well and say, is this really where you want to invest your money? And how do you make those wise decisions? So I think that's great. Do you have anything to add about that?
Yeah, I want to say, because Tony teaches me a lot around all this legal and law stuff, because he says business and law is in everything. You need
Absolutely.
to understand both. And so one of the things, and you can touch on this, if we let even one piece of legislation go through, even if it doesn't directly impact us, that also sets the stage
Yes.
for other areas to be impacted. So you want to say something about that?
Yeah. So, Linda, first of all, we think about it all the time. As you said, Nicole, you said rehearsing the problem.
Hmm.
And when we rehearse the problems, a lot of times we ask, how do we get here?
Mhm.
And then, Linda, you said that the devil is in the details. But I don't know. I was trying to think of a clever way to say something to show what we need to do, but I'll just say maybe the Holy Spirit is in the diligence, right?
Yes,
We
I was thinking of that as well. I thought, really, I don't want to leave it there because sometimes the Holy Spirit is in the details too.
yeah,
Sometimes wisdom is in the details. It all depends on who's providing the details.
but when we look at how do we get here, sometimes we don't even need to look at the details. We just need to be diligent and really study what's directly in our face. So
Mhm.
we can't go like when it comes to legislation. We can't have the approach where we'll find out what's in it once we pass it, right? We need to figure out what's in it before we pass it. And
And
so I
just
think
pause that particular line for those who may be listening and do not know where that line came from. That was years ago. That was something Nancy Pelosi had said repeatedly about legislation. It was like, well, we'll know what's in it once we pass it. To
That's
which,
right.
a lot of Americans went, "Oh, wait a second, that's not okay." And it was this, thousand, multi-page bill. And I
That's
mean, it's
right.
just crazy what happens. And that's where this diligence, like you said, the diligence to pay attention and to know that that's really good. So I'm
yeah,
glad you actually said that because a lot of people don't think about that, or to people who aren't tuned in. I mean, because their lives are busy, they're taking care of their
Hmm.
family, they're taking care of their business, they might not be tuned
Hmm.
into what's happening at their state capital or the national capital or even their city council, right? And
Hmm.
it's hard to know, but we can't leave this to others. It's our responsibility. It's our
Hmm.
responsibility as citizens, and if we are believers, it's our responsibility to bring that wisdom and diligence and excellence to all that we do, including being a citizen. So go ahead, Tony.
Hmm.
Thank
yeah,
you
but
for
Linda,
allowing me to interrupt you.
yeah, sure, no problem. It's your show. But Linda, and it's not even that we're too busy. I think sometimes we need to change our filter. Sometimes we have a D or an R filter. So if it's coming from our
Exactly.
side, we will just automatically rubber stamp it, and we don't care what the details are. We don't care what's directly in what's right there for us to see in plain sight. I'm going to stamp it because I'm for these guys, and we still don't have no interest in looking at the ultimate impact if it's played out. But when it comes to this process, a lot of these things that you may see in schools, private schools, which are businesses, a lot of these same objectives spill over to other pieces of legislation as well, not even subsequent legislation. I'm talking about sometimes simultaneously. As I said, there are thousands of bills that are being proposed in any given legislative session. But as Nicole also said, we have so many different areas where we want to focus because it all impacts business. And I can give you a prime example. Here in this area, we have a school out. The second largest university in our state is a school by the name of Towson University.
Mhm.
Very good communities in Baltimore County. And if you were to rewind the clock 10 years ago, they were looking very good, beautiful campus, beautiful area. But if you look at what's happening now, the restaurants in the area are going away, beautiful mall. And now even some of the major retailers are pulling out of that mall, places like Apple saying, we're going to get out of here. And why is Apple going to get out of there? Apple's going to get out of there because of crime. And
Mhm.
why? And crime is primarily coming from the young folks, the young. And so if the young folks have no discipline, if the young folks don't have any family structure, it's going to ultimately negatively impact business.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So now where are my kids going to work when they grow up? Do I want to invest in this area? And do I replace an apple at this location? Do I go to another county now? But if I go to another county and that county goes the other way, is that good for my state? So
Mhm.
there are a lot of different elements and a lot of dots that need to be connected. And that's why we need to look at the total person, because if we don't, our communities are going to suffer. And then we'll have a negative impact when it comes to business in our states. And then we'll wonder, why is my state falling here? Why is my state falling there? Why are major businesses leaving my state and going to neighboring states? We don't want that to happen.
Hmm.
It's all these
Exactly.
things are connected.
Yes.
I'm so glad you said that. It is so connected. And I loved you mentioned the dots connected. That's what I try to do. I've told people so much that I really try to connect the dots. Or if I look at policy, it's like a spider web a lot.
Hmm.
And of course, if you want to change policy, it's like a multidimensional 8 level spider web where you have to touch every little corner on each
Hmm.
piece of spider web if you want to change any legislation or something. But if you look at policy, it can be like a spider web, and all the weavings of the policies. Like you mentioned, you have crime. Well, where does that come from? It comes from what's the policies we have for families? What are the policies we have for education? What are the policies we have for, what am I thinking of? Like any kind of curfews or anything. Sometimes that's what's needed in some communities. And we've seen, different crime prevention things. What are the policies we have in terms of allowing law enforcement to do their jobs? All these things. I mean, we look at some states like in California where, you could go shoplift $900 worth and just walk out. Well, no wonder these communities don't have the same stores there. It's just not sustainable. And, people can blame it on whatever or on the conservatives or it's discriminatory, but it's just not sustainable. I mean, this is just not common sense. A lot of these things aren't common sense. And people can be so shell shocked from the news because every day there's some other big news headline. There's something that's, fear, I call it fear porn, fear propaganda, something else we're supposed to be really upset about, something else that is trying to divide us by race or gender or families, whatever. There's something trying to divide us. And we know as believers that we believe that that's, the enemy really trying to divide the family's bedrock of society. And, business, you can't have a healthy society without healthy businesses. Businesses, businesses really, are the basis. And so being able to help families be healthy, being able to help businesses be healthy, schools be healthy and be able to have a variety there so that religious schools, faith-based schools can thrive and our children do not have to have a totally secular education. These are all very important things for advancing flourishing for now and for the future generation. So, so Nicole, I have a question for you regarding the chamber. This has been a new thing. You launched March 19th, and I know it's so exciting. And you had just such a great turnout. And I'm curious because I've seen such a change in the marketplace in terms of the curiosity and the engagement of Christian business leaders in organizations such as the Christian Chamber of Commerce. And what are you hearing from your business leaders within the chamber regarding the difference they want to make in the workplace and in their communities?
Yeah, it's so beautiful because, first of all, they're grateful to have community where they can talk about business. Church is one thing. You go there, you can worship the Lord together, you can fellowship. But then whatever may be going on with you may not necessarily be addressed, or you don't have an opportunity to talk to people about that. With the chamber, we give space for the issues that matter to every person, whether it's church, business, their individual faith, their children, and to come somewhere where they can freely talk about God is what is the biggest draw that I'm hearing. Because there are other chambers, there are other organizations and associations, but that part of you may have to hide that, because if everybody's looking at each other with the D and the R, if that takes preeminence, then my faith doesn't. But faith is what drives everything that we do. In fact, we are very clear that your denomination, these gender issues, race, and all of those things, those are not kingdom-minded topics
or standards.
And we are upholding biblical representation in every area. And so we're drawing everybody back to the standards as they are written out in the Bible. And people love that level of accountability. They love that we can pray together, that we can talk about challenges and work on them together. And everybody's voice matters. I think that's the other thing. You don't just come and sit down and listen to me or listen to Tony or one of the other committee chairs. Every person can bring their gifts and their experience and their expertise to help us figure out for their particular communities, because we have 23 counties in Baltimore City. Yeah, in Baltimore City here in Maryland. So we're statewide. So we got to be concerned about every aspect. And as people see our level of care for them, then that grows their interest in care for others.
Mm-hmm.
We serve and we teach service. And that too is something that people are happy that they don't just have to focus on what is important to, as we say, me and mine.
Right.
They can now start looking outwardly and see how can we grow better together. They say there's a saying, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And that's what we're trying to do.
And I'm just going to inject, when you talk about the 23+1, I can tell you, Linda, Maryland is extremely unique. We have 23 different counties. But, to say, okay, but when I look on the map, the state looks so small. It looks like a little 7, I guess, with a little split down there by the water. But within these counties, we are so unique. The city of Baltimore and then Baltimore County, there may be some distinctions there, but you have urban. If you look at American urban, we have it. If you look at suburban, we have it. If you want to look at rural, we have it. You want to look at mountains, we have it. You want to look at peaceful beaches, we have it. So even within these different counties, people have different lifestyles and different expectations. It's really a unique place.
Mm-hmm. Very
Mhm.
much. And geographically close. There's some big states that have a lot of differences, but they're not geographically close. You guys are more
Right.
geographically.
Yeah, we have geographical differences and mental differences within like a 20-mile radius.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things too that I notice so much about, say, the Christian Chamber or the Christian Marketplace Ministries I've been engaged with is that, like you said, it isn't just me. And,
Mhm.
yes, chambers, we want to help elevate business and we want to make sure businesses can profit and the businesses can be engaged with the community. But
Mhm.
having the Christian chamber bringing in that element is saying, I don't want to just help me. I want to help you and you and you and
Yes.
you, because we all play a role and we all need to rise in order to make a
Yes.
positive difference in our communities. And I think that's what's really important. There's that sense of unity and that sense of service to one another. You mentioned
Mhm.
service, and I think it's just so
Yes.
important. It's so important to bring up. And a lot of times people think, well, oh, a Christian chamber or, a Christian this or that. And it's like if they stop to look, just like we started out at the beginning, don't just look at the headlines,
That's right.
look deeper and see the depth of what is really happening. And I think when people do, they become astounded and say, I had no idea. I had
Yeah.
no idea. So, yeah, our time is up, but I do want to make sure people know how they can reach you both. And I'd like each of you to say one sentence, just one sentence about. I always ask people to answer this question. If you were going to tell an employer the importance of explaining these issues to their employees, what would you say? So, Tony, I'll go with you first this time.
Mhm.
Okay, wow. So when we say these issues, what issues are we focusing on?
He's an
Oh,
attorney, Linda.
yeah.
You have
Oh, oh,
to.
oh. Let me get out the contract here. Let me see what it
Right.
says. Anyway, yeah, no, all of the
Specifically.
above. But basically, really, religious freedom, the opportunity to impact our culture, basically, and
Sure.
understanding legislative issues and things that the issues that affect your business and your ability to live freely and to flourish. I feel so often I say that prosperity is not about money. In my view, it's about human flourishing and freedom. So when we can look at some of these legislative issues or economic issues, they may affect each business a little bit differently, but each business, and I think, would be wise to explain that impact to their employees so their
Got it.
employees can learn. So that's what I'm looking at.
Okay, got it. I know you said one sentence, so I'm going to give you one long run-on sentence,
Okay.
which most people would probably make 3 sentences. But what I would explain to every employee is that within this country, you have three different um, bodies at work. You have the businesses, you have the government, and you have the individuals.
Mhm.
And the reality is, when you look at which one of those entities is the most powerful, we have to realize that businesses will drive the decisions of the government, and government will then impact the people. So if we want to have our values valued in the marketplace, we have to be strong, one, with our convictions, so that we can go to the government and make sure that our convictions are important to them as they're making legislation, especially if you say your convictions are really important to you. If they're not important to you, then that's a different discussion. But if you're in a Christian environment, you're probably there because that you really believe that God's way is the best way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's my
Well,
long one sentence.
that was well said. Wasn't as long as I thought it was going to be, especially from a lawyer. So thank you. Okay, Nicole.
Oh, and I'm talking to employers. Is
Yeah.
that who I'm talking
Oh,
to?
Yeah.
employers or employees.
Which she said employers.
Yes.
I'm
What
talking
would you
to
tell to
employers.
the employers who
Mhm.
need to educate their employees?
Yeah. I think it's really important, especially as believers, ambassadors for Christ. We have a responsibility to be God's voice. And so in the marketplace and on our jobs, we need to teach the standards of the Bible. And why that's important with your people is because these people have families and you need them all from their family, their individual life, and their professional life to be doing well. And so, as employers, it's important to know the people who are laboring with you,
Yes.
everything that matters to them. So, if we take as much time in trying to raise our productivity numbers and all of that with getting to know your people with the one on one meetings, having regular gatherings where it's not about the work, but about the individuals, you'll find that people will naturally give themselves more to the work because they know that you care about who they are as individuals. If employers can get that part down, that your human capital is your most important asset, then your business will naturally grow out of your desire to serve your people.
So well said. And I always tell employers that if you can help them understand that the reason you're sharing this information is because you care about them.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's like just basically policy information at first, like this tax policy is going to affect our business in this way.
Mm-hmm.
If a wage requirement comes in, this is what it's going to do to our business. And I need you to know this, right? That
Mm-hmm.
helps the employee know that the employer cares about them. And then, especially for Christian employers, I really see that can open up an opportunity when the employee understands the employer cares. So much more communication. The loyalty, engagement, retention increases. I've seen it happen over and over again.
Yes,
The
yes,
employee begins to take like an ownership mentality
yes.
and understanding you're really all rowing in the same direction again. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very, very helpful. It's team building. It's
Yes.
all of the above. So, so employers out there, please educate your employees. And again, I'd like to invite everyone to, use our resources, of course. We have the online course, but also join our Employers Unleashed community where we tackle one mountain of culture to really help impact it through our businesses. But also take a look, Tony and Nicole. I want you to give everyone the best way to contact you, where they can find out more about the resources you've written and offer, and how they can maybe contact you.
Thank you. For the Maryland Christian Chamber, that's mdchristianchamber.com. You can learn everything about our chamber, and also you can get more information about the U.S. Christian Chamber, since you may not be watching from Maryland. If you want to get involved with the Christian Chamber that's near you. And then for the organization that I have, which is Empower to Engage, that's empowertoengage.com, for the various services we offer to both businesses and families.
Perfect. And
And
Tony?
with me, davisfamilylegalgroup.com.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you. And again, we'll mention thanks to Crystal Parker, who connected us. So, U.S. Christian Chamber of Commerce leader. And I'm just thankful for her work and for all the people across the country who are engaged with the U.S. Christian Chamber of Commerce and the impact that they're having in the marketplace, not only in the U.S., but really around the world. So, thank
Mhm.
you. Thank you both. And I look forward to having you back again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for tuning in to this episode of the Prosperity 101 podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, and give us a great review. Don't forget to visit prosperity101.com to sign our Employers Unleashed pledge, to access our entire podcast library, or to discover resources for use in your workplace. Let us know how we can serve you. Contact us today at prosperity101.com.